lawyers, data governance lawyers. They will look at the compliances when data is being shared from a citizen data subject to a data fiduciary. And then also will look the compliances, compatibilities, and governance policies when a data fiduciary shares data to another data fiduciary. So this will be thing. So when we look into the databases, we see that citizen data comes into the government data storage when a child birth happens. So when the child is born, that is an event, and that event starts the necessity of storing data. So in our governance, we see that 0 to 18 was kind of missing. So we have created a second authority, BDRIS, Birth and Death Registration Authority. But the events of a human life, the events of a citizen life has not been addressed with these two entities, NID and this BDRIS. Then when we discovered, we tried to create something called CRVS. Marriage, education, adoption, all those things. So then it created three entities, the NID system, the BDRIS system, the CRVS system. And then one fine morning we found that millions of citizens have their data, personal data available in the dark web because those entities has been offered with API. They didn't know the API security, and then the previous regimes, the digital transformation thugs, has sold, collected, transferred those data illegally. And by then we have alternative databases. So we have to create a general data protection ordinance under the name of National Data Governance Entity. So that was the reason we were pushing our stakeholders that we need an authority. And because we cannot create two separate authorities, one for the personal data protection and the other for general protection, we just combined two into one. Okay? So now you have a one data protection governance authority, and that will be looking for both. But because personal data protection is a very unique thing and very sensitive thing, we already mentioned in a chapter of PDPO what the authority will be playing, what role the authority will be playing in its day-to-day functionality. So the roles and responsibilities has been clearly marked and identified in PDPO so that it does not conflict with the general data protection. So that was our construction of personal data protection and the National Data Governance Authority ordinance. So when this legal foundation, these three ordinances has laid the legal foundation, we will need lot more subset of this governance. And those are, we have to have a national AI policy, and that policy has to direct us how government will be solving citizen problems using large and big data. So how government will be solving data, will be taking data-driven decisions. And to do that, you have to have the state problem statement analysis, the use case analysis, and when the problem statement analysis and use case analysis are there, then we will know how we can make our government machineries efficient, our individual endeavors efficient, our public infrastructure efficient. At this moment, the accounting data, my colleagues who are present here from different domain, little bit that I am working, you are not working on primary data. You are mostly working on secondary data, and a lot of your data sources are tertiary. So the quality of the data is highly questionable and the subject to accuracy. So we have to solve this problem. So that's why I'm saying that to solve that problem, first we have to go to the data governance, and then we have to come to the AI, how we apply AI. Because if you feed massive questionable data, massive amount of questionable data that comes as secondary or tertiary, then AI cannot deliver us with proper decisions, data decisions. So that we have to understand this. And the third thing is we have to have some other policies like telecommunication policies. What are those? So we have created a number of governances for this. Everything is perfect, but your access to device is very poor. Only 40% of the citizens has access to digital device. And then out of that 40%, only 5% of the citizens have a smartphone or a laptop at hand that has service-related apps. You mean what I understand? So a very good number of people, for example, 40% of the citizens have access to digital device. But with this device, what the citizen is doing? He's playing Facebook, TikTok, mobile game. But so from service point of view, digital service point of view, we have not empowered our citizen with services. What are the services? Education services, health services, agricultural services, government services, and so many. So when citizens will use their handset and their laptop for accessing a government service, a private and public service, then his handheld device will be empowered, and through it, the citizen will be empowered. So, as access to digital device is very much limited, and one of the more least in regional standard, we are saying that we can't establish a data governance, a proper data governance regime unless we increase the access to device. And then we identify that if we make devices cheaper, we have to make devices safer. And that's why we talked about NEIR. And we talked about SIM registrations, synchronization. So those things are there, and to protect citizens from being NEIR and SIM eKYC database being hacked, we brought these terms as a clause in the Telecommunication Act, the proposed Telecommunication Act. The next step is you have Data Governance Act, personal data protection mechanisms, you have access to device, but you do not have network. So we have done drive tests, and we have seen the companies, irrespective of private and public, they have serious problem in their network coverages. And there we touched the telecommunication policy. So National Telecommunication Network and Licensing Policy 2025 has been gazetted. So some of you may have a look there. At the later part of the policy, we constructed a chapter called Rollout Obligations and License Obligations. And there we mentioned that when the telecommunication companies launch a service, it has to be launched in indiscriminated way. That means you have to launch a service in the villages, in the urban landscape, in the suburban and also rural landscape. You cannot just launch a service in the city area and then call it a success. So that is something we have brought into here. And to facilitate that, we said that your towers has to be fiberized. At this moment, only 22% towers are fiberized. So that is a fundamental blockade for evolving digital governance here in this country, because the tower is being fed by a microwave, and that can offer only 300 Mbps or 500 Mbps. And the companies are serving thousands of active users with that tiny throughput. And that is a massive blockade of our access to digital services. So, if I summarize, from Cyber Safety Ordinance, Personal Data Protection Ordinance, National Data Governance Ordinance, and then National AI Policy, Cloud Policy, We also had some other activities like we are trying to reach Bengali as a national language, so that we developed some tools called OCR, spell checker, grammar checker, font, all those things to create the whole ecosystem. But the major thing is, if you look into the journey, personal cyber ordinance, personal data protection, then national or general data governance, and then telecom, access to device and access to network, then the whole journey will be seamlessly connected to each other. But still we have many other things to do. OTT regime has to be reformed, and also the surveillance regime has to be structured. So when all those things come closer to each other, then what we will have a functional digital public infrastructure that we call DPI. So with the help of World Bank, we have started the journey of DPI. And before you understand DPI, you have to understand the previous things I have shared. So that is the grand journey we have started, and I believe in the coming days we will be implementing this DPI. And now I will show you a little bit about the DPI. So when this DPI will be established, implemented, then the digital economic opportunities, potential will be harvested. Unless and until the two founding pillars of legal and infrastructural is implemented, the digital transformation journey from a service perspective, from application and user perspective is bogus. And that's what the previous regime has done. We have undone their journey, and we have established a pathway, a roadmap. So that is the roadmap. If DPI is done, then only the potentials of digital economy can be harvested. Unless and until our startups will not fly, our banks will not fly, our initiatives will not fly in a meaningful way. So we established this as 3 steps. So at this moment, there are very little and hardly any interoperability among the ministries, among the company and the companies. So we will start with the optimization of the existing resources, and then we will identify some of the sectoral interoperability, and then in the next step we will identify the demand of national interoperability. And at a later stage, what we will do, we will synchronize the databases among each other, and then we will synchronize the data centers, cloud facilities among each other, and then we will be ready to go for a digital wallet concept that the world has going towards. So at this moment, we are not ready there, but we are starting the journey to follow the DPI journey step by step. So I will not take much time. I have spent a lot of time, but thank you very much for your attention. So this is the very first, in the upper part of this one, I'm showing you the horizontal databases. What is the horizontal databases? Horizontal database, NID is a horizontal databases. Passport system. Every citizen deserves to have a passport. Every citizen deserves to have an ID. So those databases, what all the citizens need to come into these database stores, we are calling it horizontal. And then not all the citizens will have a data, will have a card. So a personal card related data will come in the horizontal structure. So a subset of the citizen for a specific service will come into the vertical data store. So together we will have 2 types of data stores. Horizontal store where every citizen is supposed to be there. So all the citizen data should be there. And a vertical data store where a subset, a sectoral data store should be there. So like BGMEA. Not all citizens will go to BGMEA data store. Or accounting databases. OCAS databases. Some of the institutions, irrespective of private and public, will come into the OCAS database. But in BBS database, every citizen has to be there. In NID, every citizen has to be there. And the other thing is, data has a data life cycle. What is that? The data will start from 0 to 18, and then for voting rights, aging until death, and after death, data has to be maintained and protected. Because if I'm a writer, I will have copyright from my book. If someone is a researcher, he will have intellectual property claims. And even if I am not anything, I will inherit some of the property, and my property is transferable to my offspring, my children. So even after my death, my data has to be maintained, and if that happens from birth until death and after death, then the data life cycle will be maintained. So here, this is one of the very foundational concept of data governance, that we have to maintain the data obtained from both from the horizontal layer and also from the vertical layer. And then now comes, if your data, for example, my present address is different in all the vertical layers or all the horizontal layers, then if you just authenticate an ID against one of the layers, that will drive you to a false identification. So what we have to do? We have to synchronize databases, data fields. My name, the spelling of my name has to be unique in all the databases, irrespective of it is being vertical or horizontal. My address has to be unique. So when that will be achieved, then only the data-driven decision, the audit you are doing will reach the mark of accuracy. Unless and until that happens, you will be working on questionable data sets, on secondary data sets, inaccurate data sets. For AI regime, that is a big blunder. That will be a big blunder. AI and algorithms, even though that is machine learning or deep learning or AI-based data decision, that will lead us to inaccurate decisions. So to do that, we have to have system-wide propagation. We have to create an algorithm. What is the probability or proximity of having the most accurate data? We have to identify that, and that identification will lead us to change that data field in all the data fields, irrespective of horizontal or vertical. Then the data field will be accurate everywhere. Until and unless that happens, our data-driven decisions will be leading us to inaccurate decisions. So for that, we are saying that we will have some sectoral interoperability hubs. So there you have the NBR, BBS, OCAJ, Planning Commission. So they will be collecting data, direct interface with API from their data sources. So this is their first job. So that will land the sectoral approach of access to data and interoperability. And what will be the compliance? The general data protection, I mean the National Data Governance Ordinance will dictate what will be the data sharing, consent manufacturing, or data selling conditions. They will be governing that. So that is the sectoral approach. And at a later stage, what we will do? We will try to create national API hub. So API security, API compliance, and what type of data is being stored, whether the API is taking the whole data or it is match and validating, these things will be addressed there. My lecture is being a little bit technical, but I think everyone has to go through these phases. Whatever you are working in the technology department or in the accounting department doesn't matter. You have to come to this data governance regime. So that's why I'm talking some of the technical things, but we all have to understand this as a basic understanding of data governance. Otherwise, you will fail and I will fail. If I do not take you, we do not accompany you in our journey, we will combinedly fail. So this has to be, whatever subject you are studying from or graduating from, irrespective of Bengali or political science or Islamic history, you have to understand this data governance. Because at the end of the day, you will be serving the citizen from a public institute or from a private institute. So in the next step, what we will say, that the NBR, BDS, Bangladesh Public Procurement Authority, the Planning Commission or the Audit and Accounting Authority. So they will not reach every department because they do not need it. Their demand of data is sectoral, is need-based. So NBR do not connect a shop, or OCAS will not connect a shop. But there are some other entities who will be, sorry, who will have a demand to connect those. So we will have a national data interoperability exchange that we call NDGO. So together with sectoral aspect and NDGO, we will have a national interoperability framework working with each other. These are digital connectivity between the ministries, between the organizations, between the institutions. Then you do not need to submit data on Excel file, on Word file. You will be sharing data, but of course consent-based, compliance-based, data on API-based. So there will be, every time there will be an MU, a tri-party MU, who collect, stores and processes data, who reserve the data to provide digital services, and the authority. There will be a tri-party understanding. The authority will say you can share this and that data because you offer this and that service. So it has to be service mapped. Without offering service, you will not get any data from anywhere. So organizations and the authorities will have a mutual understanding for data sharing directly through API digitally. You will not demand, you will not be asked for any paperwork. So that is the digital governance DPI regime we are looking for. That is the dream. So for example, you offer a new service, you go to the authority. If authority is convinced, then based on that new service, you will get access to new data field. Then there will be some changes in the API, okay, in the coding. And for that coding, we are calling that in the data protection, in the National Data Governance Authority, we said that there will be a national code repository or GitHub to protect source codes, something like this. Okay? And the next step is, so when that is happening, we have to have a data center ecosystem. Otherwise, what will happen? Every ministry will create their own data center. And that will lead to anarchy. That will lead to consumption, high demand of consumption, quality internet and quality electricity. We do not have. This is something we buy at the cost of foreign currencies. So every ministry, if they build their own data center, that will drain our dollars, the costly earned dollars. So we have to create national data center ecosystem so that you do not create your own data center. Rather, the national data center will host your data. And that will create a kind of data ecosystem. So we will end here. If this journey is achieved until here, then the whole data governance will be ready for the next layer. What is that? At this moment, every ministry collects their data on behalf of citizen as a data fiduciary. So for example, data governance in place. So the NID or birth and death registration, instead of owner of the data, it will convert into the data fiduciary, data jimmadar. But after that, until that, we achieve the data governance and DPI targets. After that, a new journey will start in future. That is, entities will not have their data stores on behalf of the citizens. Rather, every citizen will have a virtual data store in the national data ecosystem. I will have a wallet, and in my wallet, my marriage, my certificate, my health, everything will be there. So the organization who will be processing data or serving or offering a service, he will ask my consent, and the authority will monitor that consent whether it is properly taken or not. And then he will get the store open for him on a specific store and a specific time. So that is the ultra latest modern data governance is, but because we are 180 million people, we are saying that our digital transformation and our digital governance journey has not started. So we do not have the literacy, we do not have enough learning. So with these three steps, when we mature our literacy level to a high standard, national standard, then we will be ready for the next step. So for example, the European Union has started data interoperability in 1999. In early 2000s, they mandated it. And from that perspective, we are literally 24, 25 years behind. And then in 2016, the first data governance regime, GDPR, General Data Protection Act, has been implemented in the European Union. So from that perspective also, we are 10 years, a decade late. So we have to go through this journey. Otherwise, we can't just implement citizen wallet concept at this moment. But that is our dream, the next dream. Before we reach that, we have to walk along the current DPI strategy with the help of World Bank, the organizations and associations like ICMAB. We will be achieving our targets, and I welcome your active participation, your good wish, and together we wish good luck for us. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much, sir. I was totally spellbounded by your visionary and forward-looking address. Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding our morning session, this is the time to hand over the crest and token of appreciation to our chief guest and special guest. I would like to request our Honorable President of ICMAB to hand over the crest and token of appreciation to our chief guest first, Mr. Ahmod, Special Assistant to the Honorable Chief Advisor and Honorable Advisor, Information and Communication Technology Division, Ministry of Posts, Telecommunication and Information Technology. Thank you. Now it's time to hand over the crest and token of appreciation to our special guest, Mr. Shishhadar Chaudhary. Thank you so much. To conclude the inaugural session, may I now request Mr. Mohammed Salim, FCMA Chairman, Seminar and Conference Committee and past President, ICMAB, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Faiz Ahmed Tayed, Special Assistant to the Honorable Chief Advisor and Honorable Advisor, Information and Communication Technology Division, Government of Bangladesh. Our respected special guest, Mr. Shishhadar Chaudhary, NDC, Secretary ICT Division, Government of Bangladesh. Our President of ICMAB, Mr. Mahtabuddin Ahmed, FCMA. Our fellow member, Mr. Rumi Tarek Maudud, FCMA. Respected council members of ICMAB, past president of ICMAB,